I think it's important to understand that when you talk about price controls, you have the quality of the goods and services will deteriorate. And that's because people do less when they're paid less, and higher quality is more costly than lower quality. And as you mentioned, in 71, when Nixon issued those price and wage controls, the interesting thing about that, again, is that inflation was running at 4%. And right now, even measured by the understated CPI, we're at basically 7%. And, I think the chances of that happening, I think, are actually fairly high because you have really no palatable alternatives for the current administration. If they let inflation roar, they're not going to get reelected. And when you realize that really the only way to combat this is to raise the federal funds rate. As an example, currently the federal funds rate is at 0.25% or somewhere in that neighborhood. And with inflation, let's just call it the understated CPI at 6.8%, even though we've talked that, many times you have John Williams on your show that it's actually closer to 15% right now, factored the way it used to be. But if we take that 6.8% that we see currently on the CPI, they would have to raise the federal funds rate by about 700 basis points. I mean, that's not going to happen. And what it will do will blow up the economy. So they won't get reelected there either. So the path of least resistance, in my opinion, would be price controls. And as you are speaking of, the problem that a lot of economists will often talk about is, like you said, the catch-up inflation that happens when they release the price controls and the prices skyrocket. But I don't know exactly how it could possibly affect a straight-up commodity like precious metals. But when you talk about goods that are being produced, if the cost of what you are producing goes up, yet and you're buying it globally, whatever that component may be, but you aren't allowed to raise the prices, not only do you have a shortage because fewer people are producing, but you also end up with lower quality. And I think it will only exacerbate the current supply chain shortages. As it would affect the precious metals industry, that is, I believe, how it would happen. It would, or how it would actually play out. It would affect what is already a very, very tenuous supply chain. And, I've been talking about that for a long time. Right now, it's as tough as I've seen it ever right now. And it's just like this first week. We talked about the UK Mint as an example, a prime example. They ran out of silver blanks weeks ago, and they still haven't delivered what we bought 2 months ago from them. Right now, COVID has inflicted the Austrian Mint, and heaven only knows when we're going to start getting shipments out of that mint once again. We're seeing difficulty getting product to levels that I've never experienced before in running the company. And if you start to enact price controls throughout the whole system, it will only exacerbate what is already serious supply chain issues. So, but I do think that the likelihood of that happening is not so unrealistic, because it's the path of least resistance for sure, rather than you go back to 1980 and Paul Volcker raised interest rates to 20%. That killed the inflation. It's dead in its tracks, but it would also blow up the economy to the nth degree if we tried to raise interest rates above 7% right now, which would only slightly give a positive rate of return in real terms, with inflation running slightly below 7% by the CPI measurements. Even at 7%, we would be negative real in terms of what the real rate of inflation is, but slightly positive by 20 basis points compared to the CPI. So, but that's really the only way to combat it. And so I think both of those options will guarantee that the Democratic Party is not reelected in mass, as it would blow up the economy by raising rates. And inflation is already getting difficult. They let it run unchecked, and people will just grab their pitchforks and torches and head out into the streets. So wage and price controls, to me, would be the path of least resistance. Almost everything that we have in silver is on its way in. We've sold out of everything. I mean, we have some product, but it's as dire of a situation as I've seen in 2 years in terms of immediate availability for large orders. We'll talk about what we have on special today in a minute, which is in stock and ready to go. But I have literally had to front purchase everything, and everything was purchased in November or December. And this is the dilemma that I've been talking about. So as an example, you buy 65,000 Vienna Philharmonics, and then COVID hits the Austrian Mint, and it's up in the air when we get it. We buy 70,000 UK Britannias in November, and they run out of blanks. Haven't returned my money. Had to pay high premiums, waiting to get those. This is what we're dealing with in this current environment. And the distortions that are created by the current administration would only be exacerbated by price and wage controls. But I think you're going to see them exacerbated no matter what, because really there isn't a magic bullet like this. There instead is nothing but choices that, all will have consequences. And I think, as I've been saying now for a lot, probably sooner than I should have been talking about it, but ultimately I see a market that will really be challenged, shall we say, with getting product to the public. And as it becomes obvious that the dollar is ultimately in trouble, and it may not be today or tomorrow or next month or even 6 months from now, but ultimately the dollar will be in trouble at some point. And the realization that you have to find alternatives to that dollar, I think will create really big supply chain issues in this industry. The old saying, you ain't seen nothing yet. And I believe that to be the case.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information. And it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
Do you want to know one thing about crypto? I made over 3,000% in profit in a few weeks. Fact is, the traditional financial system, the traditional money system makes you poor, not rich. If you want to earn $500,000, $1 million, you have to wait until you're 50, 60, 70 in the traditional financial system, and you probably will still be broke. And you will be old. This is not a sexy combination, as you can imagine. But the question is, how can you start in crypto and make these profits? Where to invest? Where to start? My name is Gunnar and I'm from Germany, as you can hear, and things are a little bit different in Germany. More about that later on. Fact is, there are lots of different cryptocurrencies. It's a gigantic universe where beginners and professionals get easily lost. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. There are 7 key steps you need to follow to become successful in this market. You have to know them, and if you fail one of them, it's literally impossible to succeed in this market. Just an example, one of the key points is your exchange, and one of the biggest are, for example, Binance and Coinbase. These are trusted and well-established exchanges, but, and this is a big but, you won't find the super profitable coins on those exchanges. The unknown super profitable coins that get gigantic profits are not traded on those kind of exchanges. They are traded on much smaller insider platforms that are barely known. And I can tell you what those super secret exchanges are and why they are so profitable. And another super important thing are the right information sources. The point is, the internet is gigantic. There are hundreds and hundreds of YouTube channels, blogs, pages, and much more. And there are also market makers and influencers. For example, Elon Musk, he is not a crypto guy, but the moment he recommended Dogecoin, it went through the roof, to the moon, so to say. But why did he recommend it? Where did he hear it from? He didn't hear it from newspapers. And believe me, he is listening to someone. But you have to know who, and you have to react before he is reacting. This is really, really important. And these are only 2 of the 7 steps you have to follow in order to be successful in crypto. And if you want to know all of these steps in much more detail, and if you want to have a comprehensive checklist, here's what you should do. There is a link below this video. Click on this link and you will get the opportunity to subscribe to my channel. Click on the link and you will see a video where I explain the next steps. So see you soon. Click on the link now. I'll see you there.